Hello, my name is Sanchir and I am currently slow traveling the world and redesigning my life from the ground up. Today I am in Changdeokgum Palace, I hope I said that right, in Seoul, South Korea. This palace was built as a secondary palace to the main palace, Gyeongbokgung Palace, in 1405. And this palace is also currently recognized as a UNESCO World Cultural and Heritage Site. I will give you a tour of this beautiful palace as I cover today's topic. If you watched my last video, you'll know that I spent roughly $50,000 to take a gap year and travel the world. And so in today's video, I'd like to give you a detailed breakdown of that total cost. Ever since I set a goal to become financially independent, I've maintained a detailed monthly budget that tracks my income as well as expenses down to the dollar. So I'll be using that data as a source of the breakdown that I'll give you today. I'll make this video a two-part series. In today's video, I'll cover the cost breakdown, and in part 2, to be published in a future date, I will give you guys some tips and tricks that I've learned from all the mistakes that I've made over the course of my travels for 1 year. So the period of travels that I'll cover today is from June 2024 to May 2025. That's a period of 12 months. So before I dive in, I wanted to give you all an idea of the places that I traveled to keep in mind when you sort of listen to the cost. In terms of countries, I visited Japan, Taiwan, South Korea, Vietnam, Thailand, Mongolia, and as we get into Europe, Slovenia, Croatia, Hungary, Austria, and Italy. I'll start my total cost breakdown starting with accommodation, which was the biggest chunk. One thing to keep in mind is that out of the 1 year that I'll cover, 2.5 months out of the 12 months, I was able to finish out the lease of my apartment in Austin. And also, once my lease was up, I was able to sort of stay with my parents. So 2.5 months out of the 12 months, I didn't have any expenses related to accommodation. So with that out of the way, the total cost of accommodation for 9.5 months was around $16,149. The monthly average for that 9.5 months comes out to $1,700 per month. I would say my style of traveling is, I'll prioritize comfort and staying in a relatively good neighborhood. And so with that in mind, my ideal budget for accommodation is $1,500 per month. Looking at what I spent, average of $1,700 a month. I've been consistently over budget for about $200 a month. And there's a reason for why that is, I think, because in some months, specifically when I was traveling through higher cost locations, my expenses related to accommodation were just really high. So the highest month was in May of 2025 when I was traveling throughout Europe, and the total cost for that month was $2,622. Just to give you an idea of why it came out to sort of that high cost, my Airbnb in Zagreb was $103 per night, and for 3 nights that came out to $308. My Airbnb in Hungary was actually quite reasonable at $59 per night. I stayed for 3 nights, so that came out to $268 total. My hotels in Vienna averaged $92 per night. For 5 nights, that came out to a total of $461. My hotel in Venice averaged $129 per night. For 3 nights, that came out to $386. Moving on to Florence, my hotel averaged $125 per night. For 3 nights, that came out to $374. My Airbnb in Lucca, where I stayed for 2 nights, averaged $94 per night, and the total was $188. And my hotel in Pietrasanta, where I stayed 2 nights, averaged $116 per night. Total came up to about $233. And then I flew over to Japan, and my hotel in Osaka, and this is a capsule hotel, that averaged $53 per night with a total of $105. From Osaka, I made my way over to Bangkok, and my Airbnb in Bangkok averaged $50 per night. And I stayed for 6 nights, so that the total came out to $299. So that just hopefully gives you an idea of the prices in Europe, Japan, as well as in Bangkok, and why sort of that my cost of accommodation in May came out to a total of $2,622. So next, my lowest month for accommodation during the past 12 months was in January of 2025, where I stayed put in Bangkok for the entire month, and I was able to negotiate an offline price at this serviced condo that I had found through Airbnb, and my total cost for that month of January was $1,317, and that basically equates to an average of $42 per night, which I thought was pretty reasonable. So I would just like to add, for the cost of accommodation in Bangkok, personally I've seen a lot of content on social media talking about how cheaply you can get accommodation in Bangkok as low as like $400 per month to like maybe a stepped up version would be $700 per month. And I think that is true if you've signed a 12-month lease, and that's just how your monthly rent comes up to be. But if you're like me, who is someone who is staying at a location, at most 2 weeks to 1 month at a time, like in my experience, it's just been really hard to find a comfortable place less than $42 per night, which is what I paid for that month in January of 2025 in Bangkok. So I would just keep that in mind, like $1,300 a month in Bangkok on surface sounds high because of what we've all been fed on social media, but like if you're like a week to week or a month to month kind of a person like me, the rent can be higher than you expect it to be based on what you've heard. Okay, so the next category in my total cost breakdown is food. And then the total cost came out to $11,687. That is a little bit high. Like when I did my final tally in preparation for this video, like that amount sort of surprised me. So during the past 12 months, I barely cooked because whether that's due to the type of accommodation that I was staying in, where it didn't really have a kitchen or proper like cookingware or utensils for me to be able to cook for myself. And also a lot of the places that I was able to secure didn't offer free breakfast. So that, basically meant that I was eating out, three times, at least three times a day, and plus, like coffee runs 2 to 3 times a day. With that total cost in mind, my monthly average came out to $974 per month. The highest month was when I was traveling through Europe in May of 2025, and the monthly average for that month came out to $1,537. And my lowest month was in January of 2025, where I was staying in Bangkok for that entire month, and my food cost for that month came out to $565. Okay, moving on to transportation. Total for the 12 months came out to $7,000. And transportation category included airfare and checked luggage fees, and included other modes of transportation such as taxis to and from the airport, cabs around the town, and subways and bullet trains. Moving on to entertainment expenses. So this category included streaming services such as HBO Max, Netflix, tickets to parks and museums, as well as occasional splurges like a spa day. And so the total for entertainment expenses for 12 months came out to $2,261, and that basically averaged to $188 a month. The highest month was when I was traveling through Europe, and that came out to $408. And the lowest month was when I was in Bangkok, and when I also had my foot fractured, so I couldn't really do much. And the total for that month was $33. The next category is my cell phone bill. The total for the year was $1,941, and the monthly average came out to around $162. My monthly average included my regular sort of plan with AT&T. That was around $85 per month. And also, like I was using AirAllo, which is an eSIM service. So before you land at a new location, you basically download an eSIM from one of their providers. On top of my regular cell phone bill and eSIM cost, I also incurred $600 to basically pay down my iPhone 14 so that I could unlock it to be able to download eSIMs. So the next category is car insurance and maintenance, and I incurred $1,950 for the year with a monthly average of $146. Moving on to another category, which is, I'll call it like health and well-being slash gym expenses. The total for the year came out to $1,675. that came out to a monthly average of $140. And so what I found when I was traveling through my travels is that a lot of the gyms will have day passes, weekly passes, and monthly passes. Of course, day passes are more expensive than weekly or monthly. It gets cheaper as you commit, enter into more of a commitment with that particular gym. And so like daily passes I found like averaged from $10 to $15 per day. And monthly passes I found, around $100 to $110 per month. So the next category of expenses is credit card membership fees. So I currently have Chase Sapphire Preferred, which has an annual membership fee of $95, and Amex Platinum Card, which has an annual membership fee of $695. Chase Sapphire Preferred to me is a no-brainer because there's no foreign transaction fees, which is really helpful on your travels, and pretty good set of benefits that they offer on the card, such as insurance for car rentals and so on. Amex Platinum Card I got primarily for lounge access, just because I knew that I was going to be traveling quite a bit and spending a lot of time at airports, and I just wanted to make that experience a little bit more comfortable for myself. Now, to the last category of my expenses, which is miscellaneous, and this is just a catch-all bucket of anything that you can imagine that a person might need over the course of a year. For example, like filing for taxes, TurboTax fee of $148, and I also spend $169 for online courses to get my CPE credits to maintain my CPA license. It's a little bit of a larger bucket at $3,355. So I think there's definitely probably some room for improvement there, because anything that I hadn't budgeted for, I sort of just kind of categorized it as miscellaneous over the course of the year. So the grand total of all of my expenses over the past year adds up to $47,488. Please comment below any thoughts that you might have had, any helpful tips for me and for others as you've sort of listened to the various categories of expenses that I incurred, as well as the amount of those expenses. Like I said in the early part of this video, I plan to make a part 2 just to share some of the lessons that I had learned from my mistakes in planning and budgeting for my gap year to help you save money on your next travels. Thank you for watching.